All right. And in this line, what we're doing, we're declaring a new variable d. And in order to define its value, we're doing arithmetic operation using previous variables that we've declared here, and then dividing it by 5. And then when we print d, it's just going to print 2. Now, you could have just used these two variables and put it all inside print function, and the result would be the same. But here you've declared a new variable. So this is just another way how you can declare a variable. You can either just say a equals to 20, b equals to 30, and then just use those two variables to get the values that you're looking for. Or if you need another place to store certain values, then you will have to declare a new variable. Now, I'm going to ask this question. So variable d, does this variable depend on anything? Yes, exactly. It depends on a and b. Well done. Okay, very well. All right, so yes, that's right. Okay, good job, guys. Now, why use variables? So it might be hard sometimes to tell when you need to make a variable, but a good rule of thumb is that when you need to keep a track of something, you probably should make it a variable. So just like in the previous slide, you can see that a and b and d, d is dependent on a and b. So d will be changing as a and b are changing. So it's good rule of thumb to create a variable if you know that you will have to change its value later on, or you will need to use its value. So instead of just using a number, it's a good programming skill to create a variable and store that value, because sometimes the value will change. It will have to change, and later on that is on the next slide actually. So variables are crucial in any program or game, for example, you choose. So for those of you who are very much into gaming, you all probably are very well aware of player's health, player's position, score, so on and so forth. So for example, in order to track your health as a player, you need to know how many hearts you have, or like the bar, like what's the percentage of your health, you know, so that health is in fact variable, okay, and it's changing. It depends on multiple things that are going on in your game, and every time when something happens, it will either decrease your health because you get a hit, or if you pick up some, well, depending on what type of game you play, if you pick up certain items, sometimes it increases your health. So then it will add points to your health variable inside the game. So think about this way, okay? Now, naming convention is very important. Now, when you create a variable, you need to make its name very meaningful. So then when you go back to your code, or for anyone else who is looking at your code, it will make a perfect sense what that variable is for. So naming is very, very important. If it's just a random variable and you're just doing some simple things, then it's okay to just use A, B, C, so on and so forth. But when you guys are working on your projects and making something more complex, my best advice to you is to really give a meaningful name to your variable, okay? And a couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you create such meaningful name. So your variable should not include any spaces. So for example, if you are working on a game and you're trying to create a variable that will be attached to your, let's say you created a player and player will have health. So if, for example, you want to name that variable player's health, then it's technically 2 words, but in order to put them together without a space, you just have to use this underscore. So if you just use a space, Python is not going to understand that. It's going to find it's an error, and it will not proceed any further. So if your variable is supposed to have two words, or maybe a word and a number, then, and you want to separate it, in order to separate it, just use an underscore. Now, a variable can be one of the Python keywords. So there are a couple things that you need to keep in mind when you're working with any programming language. Some of the words are reserved, and every language has its reserved word. Now, if you want to see a list of all reserved words that Python have, you can just simply Google it very quickly. Just Google Python reserved words. I believe there are 50 of them, if I'm not mistaken. And those words should not be used, because these words are reserved by Python, and it's connected in its own library. So, for example, if you want to create a variable named print, that's not going to work. So please don't do that. So you will have to get creative, and that applies to every single programming language practically. Now, Python is case sensitive, just like as far as I know, every single programming language. I might be mistaken, but what I come across, they're all case sensitive. So score with a small character s is not the same as the capital S score, okay? The reason why, because of anyone knows why, by the way? Anyone knows why capital S is different than small s, or like any, like OB, like whatever? Does anyone know? Does anyone want to take a wild guess? No? Okay. Close. So it all comes down to ASCII code. You guys are welcome to, it's beyond scope of this course, but it's all because of the ASCII code. So for those of you who are very curious what it's all about, Google it and do your quick research, and you will see exactly why. ASCII code will give you a pretty good understanding on that. But if you just want to focus on basics, please make sure that you keep track of your names, and remember that it's all case sensitive. So if you want to have something with capital letter, then you have to keep it consistent. Because if, for example, you named your variable, let's say cat, at the beginning with the small c, and then later on you're trying to use the same variable, and by accident you just typed with capital C, let's say cat with capital C, Python is going to think of it as a brand new variable. It's not going to understand it, and it may either give you an error message, or depending on your code, it may generate a new variable with capital C as a cat. So just be very careful with that, okay? And now we have our first quick question. So using mouse X arithmetic operators and ellipse, so remember it's X in the X direction, Y in the Y direction. We're talking about location of your ellipse, and this is just a dimension of your ellipse. So it will be your width and height, okay? So make the size of the circle proportional to how far left or right the mouse is on the screen. So remember we talked about mouse X, what it does, and remember what it does when you write ellipse with X, Y, W, and H. So with that keeping in mind, I'm going to launch the question, and I'm sure you guys are going to get it right. So what do you need to do with that mouse X in order to make the size of the circle proportional? So you need to do, so whatever mathematical operations need to be done, they need to be done with using mouse X. All right, couple more minutes. Okay. All right, I'm gonna end poll in 3, 2, 1.5, 1. Okay, that's it. All right, so congratulations, guys. You've done really, really well. So the correct answer is C. And the reason why, for those of you who got a little bit confused about that, that's not a problem. So as you can see, your circle is moving as your mouse is moving, right? So as you're changing your cursor, you're moving it in the like left and right, then your circle is changing. So here, all your variables are dependent on mouse X. So that's why all the arithmetic operators had to be connected to mouse X, because mouse X is something that is connected to your mouse. So then every time when you move it, then whatever shape you're attaching to it will be changing with how you move your mouse, okay? Mouse X and mouse Y. Mouse X and mouse Y is X and Y direction, and then you use mouse X for your width and height. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. But I'm very proud of all of you, of majority of you, good majority of you, that you got the right answer. Okay, so updating a variable with itself. Ooh, okay, so the symbol equals is the assignment operator. Okay, so just remember this for now. Okay, so equals just assigns whatever value you want your variable to have, you use equal. Okay, the left hand side is set to whatever the right hand side, not vice versa. So your height will equal to 170. Okay, your height can equal to your height plus whatever you add to it. So here your height went from 170 to 175. And when you print your height on the third line, it will print whatever you made the line before. It will not print this one. It will print this one, okay? So in this line, you're overriding your height that you've declared the line before, okay? So just remember that on the left-hand side, you name your storage, you name your variable, and on the right-hand side, you assign its value. So think about it as height is 170. Height is height plus 1 plus 5. So think about it as either equal or is. Like if you think of it this way, because sometimes it might everyone thinks differently. So just think about it as height is something, or height equals to something. And think about every variable that you're about to declare this way, that your variable equals to something, okay? Or your variable is something, all right? So that's your assignment. And as I said, you can change your variable that you've declared before by redeclaring it again on the next line. And whatever you've done here, that will be the most recent value, because this value is going to be overwritten, all right? And then, of course, you can simply overwrite your variable by just equating it to a new value like we've done here. Any questions about assignment operator? All right, I think it's pretty straightforward. So, but if anyone has any questions, please fire them in the chat. Now, shorthands for lazy programmers. So for those who might consider themselves lazy, here's the good news. So to prevent any typos and save some time, you can avoid rewriting the variable and using the following notation. So this is a little bit more advanced way of declaring your variable, and some of you may not be comfortable with this just yet. So this way, it's kind of like a hard coding. So you code every single line, and the benefit of that is that it's easy to follow. So for those of you who've never had any experience with programming, this might be a pretty good way to start. And then once you become comfortable with it, then you can get into this one. But for those who are comfortable with the previous slide, then this will be a good news for you. So again, this is more advanced. So another way how you can declare your variable, you can use these two operators together. So what it does, it basically means that, so if x equals to 5, then it means that, or x equals to whatever, it means that in this line, you're declaring a new value of x by adding another 5. So like here, what we've done, we've declared our height, and then we said height equals to height plus 5. And here we could have just said height plus equals to 5. So that will be another way how doing it. But again, this is a little bit more advanced way of doing it. So it's just for you guys to see another way. And as I said, if you're not super comfortable with that, that's okay. You can just follow this logic. And if you are, then by all means, you're welcome to do this one. And same thing applies with deduction or multiplication or anything else. You can just use minus and then equals 12, for example, here. So here you're just subtracting your 12, all right? So this is just a shorthand. And now we have our first exercise. So you guys will be sent to your breakout rooms. And in this exercise, you will need to consider the following code in drawing two squares with the same variable. So you will need to try it out. So here's the code. And so here, as you can see, that we've declared our size of the window, so 500 by 500, okay? And then we've declared our two variables, x and y. So x has zero value and y has 400 value. And now we're drawing our rectangular shape, which will have a location of x and y, right? And then it will have a diameter and like height and width will be 100 by 100, right? So, and then we're gonna change our x, so it will be plus equals to 400, or equivalent, that will be x equals x plus 400. So here, all we're doing, we're just taking this 400 and we're just taking this value x and we're adding to this x 400. So now it's 400. So as you can see, our second rectangular now is located over here. Okay, so that's the logic of this code. And now the purpose of this exercise is for you to create the diagonal of all the squares. Okay, so you just need to think how you can change X and Y values. So you can change the locations of each square, so then they can line up in diagonal form. All right. So anyone has any questions about that before you guys send to the breakout rooms? All right, so you guys can, okay, yes. So I'll, oops.
Once again, space, Otter, and I believe, can you guys just type in your name in the chat so I can just assign you to a breakout room?
All right, so the code has been shared, and you guys will be sent to your breakout room. So I can see you guys already going, so that's great.
Dragonflare, can you just write your name so I can just like assign you to a room?
Oh, my real name?
Oh, yes.
Oh. I think I'm supposed to be in group 9.
Oh, you're not supposed to be in group 9? Yeah, I'll assign you to group 9. There you go. I hope, Marina, this was a lot more smoother than the last time. So we saved a lot of time.
Sorry, I was muted.
No.
Yeah, no, I think everything is going
Okay, perfect.
going good. Yes.
Yeah, you let me
Oh.
know whenever you want to pause the breakout room. So I'll just broadcast a message like the breakout rooms will close in like 2 minutes or 1 minute so that they have a heads up.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, no, for sure. How do I park everyone? I hope you had a good time working on this challenging exercise. Well, I hope it wasn't super challenging. So I'm gonna go over the solution. So for those who got it perfect, well done. For those who found it a little bit difficult, that's okay, because I'm gonna go over the solution. So hopefully I will clear that up for you. All right, so we are gonna start with our setup function, and we're going to define our size, background, and fill. All right, so I'm going to run this, as well as our X variable, Y variable, and rectangular shape. All right, we've done that. Now, we need to make a change to our variables, X and Y, such that we can draw the same rectangular shape basically by just copying this line at line number 10, and place our rectangular shape over here, okay? And by doing that, all we had to do is add 100 to our X and deduct 100 from our Y. And because our X starts with 0, right? So we can't deduct anything. So we have to add something to it, right? But with Y, we have to subtract because our Y is at 400 already. So now I just made the change to X and Y. That's all I did. And this line is just a repetitive of this line. right? So what's going to happen now, I'm going to draw a second rectangular shape. And the same thing is going to go on for how many times? Can anyone tell me in the chat? Yeah, exactly. Yes, you guys got it right. So basically, I can just copy this code and then just paste it. Sorry, I'm trying to make it work. There you go. All right, well, I copied it like 3 more times, so I guess I have to do it 1 more time, and that's it. We achieved our goal. So no, we do not have to submit this because these exercises are for you guys to practice, so they're not up for marks. And usually these exercises are very good reference point for your homework. So I did share the code in the chat. So please make sure that you get it. Actually, let me share the code in the chat with comments because this one does not have comments. So let me share a different version that will make a better sense because it does have comments. How do you know how many lines of space do you need to inverse into copies? Good question. So with that, size will be my very good reference point because I know my size is 500 by 500, and I know that my rectangular shape is 100 by 100. So then it will give me a pretty good indication of how many squares I can place, right? So how much can I fit in it? So it's a little bit more, it's a little bit involved in a like mathematical way, like in arithmetics. You just have to do quick math in your head. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Just look at the size of your screen and what is your dimensions of the rectangular shape. So if it's 100 by 100, then you probably 5 is probably pretty good estimation because you have 500 by 500 and rectangular shape is 100. So 500 will put 5 squares. Okay, so if you're confused about that, size, that's what will give you a good indication, right? Because that defines the size, literal the size of your screen, right? And how much can you fit in that screen? So think about it as a paper, right? And how many, like how long your paper is, right? Like how big your paper is, and think about it as how big your shapes can be in order to fit in that paper. Because if your paper is like this small and your shape is like this big, like you can't really draw that big shape in that small piece of paper, right? So you have to shrink your shape, or you will have to just make your screen bigger, right? So does that make sense? Does that explain why? Yes, okay, all right, no problem. Okay, so we are going to move on to our next set of slides. So we're going to talk about variable scope. Now, variable scope and global variables. So variable scope says how long variables last for and what can see them. And by what can see them, just give me a second, please. All right. So variable scope says how long variable lasts for and what can see them. So by when I say what, that means what functions can see them. So variables started inside the function. So in this case, it will be, for example, in setup function or draw function, and they do not exist outside of it. So far, what we have been doing, we have been declaring those variables inside those functions. So if you created a different function, just think about it as like a new def outside of your setup and draw function, and you use the same variable that you've declared in setup function, it's not going to recognize it. Okay, so variables outside of all functions are global variables. And in order in order for them to be defined, you actually need to use a keyword called global. It may sound confusing, but I will clear that up, I promise. So here's the analogy. So you have a function. So here's the global scope. Okay, so think about it as human rights, no slavery. Okay, now it's on the global level, right? So this is something that, you know, it's the law and it's a global scope. Now the function scope, for example, in Canada, we have law that allows individuals age of majority, where it started at 18 in Alberta. In BC, it's different, but you must be 18 or older to, to be allowed to purchase alcohol, for example, right? So in Canada, in Alberta specifically, that would be 18. Now, if you go to United States, that's not going to fly. In United States, you got to be 21 in order to be allowed to purchase alcohol, right? So if you're allowed to purchase alcohol in Alberta, right, with your ID, right? So think about your ID as your variable. And you go to United States is not going to allow that because their laws are different. So Canada is one function and your ID will work there, but United States is a different function and your ID will not work there. Or, it will work, but it will not work in specific purpose, such as purchasing alcohol, okay? So does that make sense? Does that explain the difference between global and like inside functions and global functions? Yes. So whatever you declare inside setup function, it will not work in draw function. So in order for this to work, you will have to use global variable. Now, if we create, and this actually answers question, this slide. So if we create a variable X inside setup, it will only exist inside setup. So this, think of it as Alberta, okay? So your ID is here and it works here. Now this, for example, in BC, I believe in British Columbia, you have to be a minimum age of 19 in order to be allowed to purchase alcohol. And here you, so this one, let's say, will be your British Columbia. So your ID here for that specific purpose is not going to work, okay? So it's going to give you an error because laws are different. So draw function simply doesn't know what X is all about. So it will say, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. You want me to print something that doesn't exist in my world, okay? Now, global keyword. So to fix our example from the previous slide, so in order for draw function not to complain and say, okay, I know what you're talking about, you have to declare your X at the very, very beginning. And then you go on with your setup function, and then you go on with your draw function. And as you're using your X, all you need to say, you just need to say global. So in setup function, you'll say global X, and then setup will be like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no problem. And then draw function will do exactly the same thing. So these functions will no longer complain because they know that X is a global variable. It's like a national law for them, right? So it will work, okay? Does this make sense? Guys, thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, good. Okay, wonderful. All right, sounds good. Okay, let's go on with our example. So we're going to create X as global variable. X will equal to 10. And then we're going to define the size of our screen, okay? And then inside the draw function, we're gonna state that there is a global variable X. And notice how here we're actually assigning a value to our X. And then global function, all we're just saying it's global X, that's it. So here we don't even have to define a value. We're not doing anything with it. All we're saying is, hey, there is a global X, just so you know, and then it will know. And then after you said that, after you've typed global X, then later when you're doing any manipulations, it will know exactly its value. So then it will print whatever you need to be printed, okay? So it treats it just like a regular variable. So now we have a quick question. Question number 2. Does the following code work as expected and make the circle move to the right? Why or why not? Okay, so I will launch the poll. And you guys, please take a crack on it. It is a tricky question. So you need to think about what draw function does. And there are comments that are suggesting you. So we've said that before at the beginning. I've said that draw function is like an infinite loop. It's like something that repeats forever, right? So it repeats forever. Now here you're creating X, and here you're incrementing your X, and then you're drawing your circle. But because the function is repeating forever, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And inside this function, you're creating a variable and you're making changes to this variable. So is this circle going to move? You're repeating the function, so it just goes on and on and on and on and on. While the function keeps going, right? It's like an infinite loop, right? Like going around the circle. You keep creating X, and then you're incrementing your X. So is your circle going to move? It is a tricky question. And I can see it like even with your answers. It is a very tricky question. All right. I'll give it another minute. If some of you did not get the poll, at the bottom of your screen or in the panel, like a control panel, you should be able to see polls. So just click on that and you will be able to get that pop-out window. You should see polls like next to chat, like you will have participants and then chat and then polls. So just click on that and it should pop up. Oh, that's so strange. Okay, can you guys please raise your hands? How many of you cannot see it? One. Okay, just one person. Okay, that's so strange. All right. Okay, perfect. So okay, good. All right. Okay, I'll give it another 30 seconds. Okay, I'm about to end this poll in 3, 2, 1.5, and end. Okay, it was a tricky question, but majority of you, 44%, well, not really, but 44% got it right. So the answer is no. The variable will be redeclared in each iteration and the circle will not move. So why is that? Can anyone tell me in the chat why the circle would not move? Exactly. It's always yes, exactly. Yes, that's right. That's right. You guys got it right. Yes, 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 and yes again. So as I said before, draw repeats forever. So something just keeps going on and on and on. It's like going around the circle, right? Like it never stops. And as it never stops, so it starts from yeah, okay. I think I can annotate. Yes, perfect. Okay, so let's see. So think about your draw function as the circle, okay? And this is your start. So you will be starting right here. It's a bad color. You will be starting right here, okay? And that's where your x, so here your x equals to 10, okay? So you're starting right here. Your x equals to 10. And then you will go on here, and then x will equal to x plus 1, okay? So that's your next point. So this is point number 2, okay? So this is 2. And then you're gonna do your ellipse. You're gonna draw this guy. So it's gonna happen somewhere here, let's say. And then you're gonna come back here and your x is back to 10, right? So then you're gonna go again to x plus 1 and again to your ellipse and then again x plus 10, so on and so forth. That's it. So it will just go on and on and on and on. So hence your circle will never move, right? Okay. Does this make sense now? Okay. Yes. Okay, perfect. All right. All right, I'm sorry for my drawing skills. Clearly, they're not as good as I hoped for, but let me just erase whatever I wrote here. Okay, perfect, because I don't want this to follow us. Okay, let's move on to how can we use variables to change other variables. So in the beginning of the session, we discovered that you can declare a variable and then you can declare another variable that will be dependent on other variables. So in other words, variables can change, and they usually do. And that's why they call variables. So for example, in 2 variables, we can store player's x position and player's speed. And then we can use the speed variable to change player's position. So here's the example. So you've got your speed, right? So that will have a value of 3. And then your x, your another variable, will be changing with the speed. So your speed is 3, and then you're changing your variable by adding speed to it. So then when you draw your ellipse, then you can see how your ellipse is changing because of the speed. And here you increase your speed from 3 to 5. So now your ellipse is moving a lot quicker. So here you're just adding speed to your x. So remember that this x is equivalent to x plus speed. Okay, so that's all it does. So in real life, the longer a ball falls, the faster it falls. So you can replicate this by increasing the speed over time. So you can increase the speed from 1 all the way to 5, and your ball will be falling faster, or in this case, the color will be changing. So it's the same concept. So you've got your y plus equals to speed, and then you're incrementing your speed. So this one, you will increment your speed, and as you go back to your x will be also incremented by your speed. So here you increase your x with the current value of speed, and here you're changing your value of your speed, and that will also change your y once you come back to it. So, and that brings me to exercise number 2. So in exercise number 2, you will need to write a program to draw a circle which moves diagonally down to the bottom right until it goes out of the window and disappears. You can make the circle gradually change from red to blue. And here's the things that you need to think about. So position of the circle. So both its x and y coordinate need to be updated. So so you can use these operators to shrink your code. So this equivalent to your variable plus your variable, your variable equals to your variable plus whatever value you want to add. And same thing is just a subtraction. So it's kind of similar to what we've done with exercise 1, when we had to change our variables with x and y. And so here, first you change the position of your circle. And the next thing that you will be changing is the color of the circle. So you can use RGB color system to see how you can get red, blue, or purple. And by doing that, or by getting that information, you can just Google RGB color system, and there will be a pop-up window that you can navigate. So I think I've showed you this guys before. This RGB color tables generator. Yeah. Sorry, last time it really worked for me. Maybe it's a picker. Yes, it's a RGB color picker. Sorry, my apologies. And then here you can just navigate throughout the bar and see how colors are changing. And these are the values that you will need to pick. So if you're looking for something super red, like for example, something like that, then your RGB colors will be that. So, so all you have to do is just Google RGB color picker. Okay, so that's all you need to do. And that will, so you will also need to tie that color so that it will change with the position of your circle. So as your circle is moving in diagonal direction down, then it will also change its color. So you will need to declare your x position and y position, okay? And you can also declare the color of your circle that it's going to start with. So if you want to start with red, then the color position should be 255, for example. And then you go on with your setup function, and you will create your draw function. So in this case, you will have to utilize your new knowledge of global variables. So whatever you declare before your setup function, so that will be your x position, y position, and the colors of your circle that you're starting with. So those variables will be declared at the very beginning, before your setup function. In your setup function, you will declare only the size of the screen. And then you will go on to your draw function. And inside your draw function, you will have to use your keyword, which is global variable, in order to bring all your variables that you've declared before setup function. And then the world is your oyster. So you will then have to draw the circle and figure out how you will need to change your global variables that you brought in, such as x position and y position and the color, so then your circle will move. And remember, your circle will move only inside the draw function, okay? And you will have to make those changes. So inside the setup function, all you do, you just set up the size of your screen, okay? So I hope that makes sense. And with that, you guys are free to go to the breakout rooms. All right, welcome back. I hope you guys had a good time working on this exercise. And if you got it working, congratulations. If you did not, that's okay, because we're going to go over the solution and it will help you with your homework for sure. Okay, so just like I said before, we're going to start with declaring 4 variables. And these variables will be your X and Y position, and then you will have 2 variables dedicated to the color. So in this case, you're going to start with red color. And then another color that you had to add was, in this case, would be blue color, and you start with 0. So then you won't even see it at first. Then in your setup function, the only thing that you will be doing is setting up your size of the screen, okay? And the next function, the draw function, so that infinite loop, that's the function that will be your main function where things are going to be happening. So you're going to start with the global keyword to bring all the variables that you've declared before. And that will be your X position, Y position, your red color and blue color, okay? And then you will create a background. You will fill it with colors, and you're gonna draw your shape, which will be ellipse. And then, so that this is pretty straightforward. We've done it before, nothing really new. And then here, just like in one of our previous exercises, we had to change our X position and Y position, and then along with that, we're going to be changing our color. So this is equivalent to X position equals to X position plus 2. And this one is Y position equals to Y position plus 2. Same thing applies with color, minus 2 or plus 2. And then when I click run, sure enough, it's happening. So also, please make sure that you always finish your code with run, 2 round brackets. Otherwise, your code will not work. So if everything was just like was described on the screen, but didn't work, it's probably you were missing something. So I will share this code with you guys. So and this will be very handy for your homework, because your homework is very similar to this concept. It's a little bit more involved, but the idea is pretty much the same. So you can use this as your template for your homework. Okay, so I've shared the code, so please make sure that you save it. And now we're going to quickly cover some other cool features that you find pretty interesting. Can you put our variables in setup and then global both setup? So if you put your variables in the setup, it will be only recognized in the setup function. And if you use, if you've declared your variables before your setup function and before outside of your setup function, outside of your draw function, then you will need to use the word global. Now, you don't necessarily have to declare those variables outside, so you could have just declared them all in a draw function. But whatever you've declared outside of the draw function or setup function, unless it's global, it will not know. Does it answer your question? Yes, okay, all right. Good question. So text and lines. So you can also write text. So for example, this function, text size and text align and text. So these are just functions. And these functions are very similar to a print function or ellipse function. So every time when you see some word, like let's say in this case will be text size and then round brackets and then the value. So this is function, okay? And this function that is predefined in Python, so you don't have to worry about it, how it's defined. You can just use it and it will write a text, okay? And then this one will draw lines. So for example, this function line will draw your line. So you have an output from your text size, text align and text. So this will bring you to that. And then it just aligns your text. So here you've indicated left and baseline. So more on that, I will share this link. So what this link does, it provides you with all resources that perhaps will help you to create your project a lot more exciting. So in this link, you'll find different functions and different keywords that are reserved by Python, and you will also find explanation and examples how it works. So these are just one of the few extra features that you can add to your project at the end of the year. But if you want to learn more about, for example, how text-align works, then please visit this link, and you will be able to see the full explanation of it and what parameters go inside that function and what they mean and how they should be written. Because if this is predefined by Python, so it's part of the Python library, and there are a lot more functionality into it. It's just there's so much we can offer in this class and throughout this course, and some of these things are way beyond the scope of this sessions. So I highly encourage you guys to go on that link and just wander around and see what you can find, and you will be pretty amazed. And by looking for extra resources will not only help you to learn more, but also will help you to gain more skills, and will give you different perspectives how you can write your code, right? So so that will answer your question about the text align. So it just aligns the text, but the reason why it's left and baseline is just the parameters that you have to use, and that's how the function is defined in Python library. So someone defined this function, put it in Python library, so we all can use that. Okay. So with that, you can combine text with variables. So for example, here, we can use our text size function and text, and then we can change the position of our hello by changing our variables X and Y and font size as well. So you can see that hello will be coming closer and closer, like enlarging, and then eventually disappearing because it will be going outside of the scope of the size of the screen. So you can also implement fading colors. So it's something that we've done in our second exercise. You can just change the variable green, and it will change the color, so it'll become more green over time, as you can see. That basically brings us to the end of the session. So here are the links for submitting your exercises, and these are the exercises. So I'll quickly go over the exercises for Bugbusters, and then I'll touch base on Pythonic Lava. So with this exercise, it's very similar to what you've just done with your mid-session exercise number 2. The only difference for this one, you will still have to declare, you actually will have to declare 5 variables here. So you will declare your colors, you will declare your position for your 2 circles, but you will have to declare only position in what direction. Can anyone tell me what position you will actually have to change for this exercise? Is it X direction or Y direction? X, yes, absolutely, well done. So you will have to create those variables. You will also have to think about a 5th variable that you will need to change, and we did talk about it quite a bit, so I'm not gonna say this, I'll let you guys figure that out. Okay, so the next one here, you will need to declare 2 variables, and what variable do we need to change? So 2 variables that will be changing, and what are these variables? Can anyone tell me for exercise 2? So you have a circle is growing. Okay, it's growing. So how can okay, so color, I like that. Yes, Clara, good job. Yes, color and diameter. Well done. Beautiful. Okay, well, I'm gonna move on to Pythonic Lava because you guys know what you're doing. The final project, we'll talk about it later in the session, so I wouldn't worry about it right now. The final project, it's something that will be explained and covered later in the session. So right now, I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, it will be explained. Okay, so now Pythonic Lava. So with Pythonic Lava here, can anyone tell me? So you will have to declare your X and Y position. And what other things do you need to declare in this exercise? Yes, it will be the speed. Yes, absolutely. Yes. So that's pretty clear. And then with this one, so here you have only, so I'll give you a hint. You will have to use your mouse X and mouse Y in order for this to change. But what other things do you think you will need to declare? And that's only one thing. You will need to declare only one variable outside of your functions that will have to change. And what that variable will be, because you can see that this guy is changing as you're moving your mouse. So it is attached to your mouse X and mouse Y. So that's pretty straightforward. But then other things are changing too. So what is it in this exercise? In order for you see like this rectangulars, they're moving away. You're very, very close. So what is the distance? Oh, actually, I gave the word away. Sorry. Yeah, you have to create. Yeah, you have to declare distance. Sorry, I gave it away. So, but I'm not gonna give anything away anymore. So with that, I thank you all for your attendance today. I hope you guys had a good time. So before you guys go, I will launch a quick poll, and with that, again, if there are any questions or concerns, please fire them in the chat or unmute yourself. And I hope you guys had a good time today and learned a lot, and good luck with your exercises. No, I think you're overthinking that, Jonard. So if you're in Pythonic Lava, you have to do both. And if you're in Bugbuster, you have to do 1 and 2. And here in Pythonic Lava, you just do 3 and 4. You're welcome, guys. Thank you. And again, you can choose whatever group you want to be. So if you want to be in Bugbuster, just go to the link that was shared on the second set of slide, on the second slide. But if you're comfortable with Pythonic Lava, then by all means. So it all comes down to your comfort level, what you're comfortable with, because this exercise is a little bit easier. This one is more involved. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're harder. It's just more tricks to it. But it's all based on what we've covered today. So yes, absolutely, we can. Just let me just share this link again. So you guys enjoy your weekend as well. It's like Christmas came early this year. So I don't have that link to points or marks. Arya, do you have that link where students can check their marks for their homework and how many points they've got so far?
I think it's still being graded, and once it's graded, I think they'll just get the marks. Like I will just generate a sheet and I'll send it across. Yep. So
and then where can they submit weekly social media challenges? Is it on Discord or?
Oh yeah, on Discord.
On Discord, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,